Erev Shabbat Shalom Rabotai. We are continuing with our Mishna Yomi, Masechet Eruvin. We are up to Perek Daled Mishnah Vav. Today's Mishnayot should be Leilu Nishmat Neria ben Tzvitlana Aranbai V'Neriyahu ben Burcha Yisraelov Menuchatam Began Eden. Amen. According to several opinions recorded in the preceding Mishnah, one who was asleep on the road at the beginning of Shabbat is confined to a 4 amma area for the entire Shabbat. The following Mishnah discusses the law for two people who find themselves in this situation. Hayu Shenaim, if there were two people who were each confined to their own 4 amma area, Miktzat amotav shel zeh betoch amotav shel zeh, and some of the 4 amot of one overlapped some of the 4 amot of the other. Now, the Rav gives an example. They were 6 amot apart from each other when Shabbat began. Now, since each one has 4 amot in the direction of the other person, there is a 2 amma area in which they can both move. And whoever can see the diagram brought down in the elucidated notes. Now, the Rav's description of there being 6 amot between them fits with the view of the sages and Rabbi Yehuda in the preceding Mishnah, who hold that either a person gets either 4 amot in each direction, or that he gets to choose a direction in which he wishes to take his 4 amot. However, according to Rabbi Eliezer of that Mishnah, who grants only 2 amot in each direction, the two people would have to be standing less than 4 amot apart for them to have a shared area. And again, whoever could see the notes, that'll illustrate the Mishnah's point. The Mishnah continues, Mevi'in v'ochlin b'emtza, they may bring their food and eat it in the middle amot, which are shared by both. Ubilvad shelo yotzi zeh mitoch shelo letoch shel chavero, as long as each one is careful not to transfer his food from his 4 amma area into the unshared part of his friend's 4 amma area. Now, since an object has the same tichum boundaries as its owner, like the Mishnah says in Masechet Betzah, chapter 5, Mishnah 3, each one's food must remain in his own 4 amma area. Now, the Mishnah continues with a ruling concerning 3 people in this situation. Hayu shelosha, if there were 3 people who were each confined to their own 4 amma area, va'emtzai muvla benen, and the middle person's area was overlapped by the other 2, but the areas of the 2 outer people did not overlap. For example, the 4 amot of all 3 people were spread out over an area of 12 amot, with 1 person at each end and 1 person in the middle. Again, whoever can see the diagram, the middle person who has 4 amot in each direction shares 2 amot with each one of the outer people, but the 2 outer people do not share any space. Now again, the Rav's description of this case fits the view of the sages of the preceding Mishnah, that a person gets 4 amot in each direction. According to Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehuda of that Mishnah, the overall area and the spaces between each pair would be different. And the Mishnah continues, Hu mutar imaen ven mutarin imo, the middle person is permitted to bring his food and eat with either of them in the area he shares with them, and the 2 outer people are permitted to bring their food and eat with him in the area they share with him. Meaning, the 2 outer people may bring food into their shared area, and the middle and one of the outer may bring food into their shared area. Now, the way the commentaries explain it, that the middle person may not bring one of the outer person's food from their shared area into the area he shares with the other outer person, or vice versa, because an object may not be moved even by someone else out of its owner's area. So he could share it with one of the outers, but he can't take one of the outers and share it with the other outer. Again, whoever can see the diagram, that will help visualize the Mishnah better. And the Mishnah continues, Ushnayim achitzunim asurim zeh im zeh, but the 2 outer people are forbidden to bring food and eat with each other, since they do not share any space. Now, Rabbi Shimon and the sages disagree about a law concerning carrying from one courtyard to another. Like we explained earlier, the rabbis prohibited carrying in a courtyard shared by the residents of the houses that open into it, unless the residents join together in an Eruvin chatzerot. Now, when 2 courtyards are next to each other and there is an opening in the wall that separates them, each is viewed as a separate unit, and the residents of each may make their own Eruv, as the Rav says. Now, if they do so, the residents of each courtyard may carry in their own courtyard, but not in the neighboring courtyard. However, if they wish, the residents of both courtyards may make a joint Eruv to permit them to carry from one courtyard to another. We will speak about it more in chapter 7, Mishnayot 1 and 2. But in the next section of our Mishnah, Rabbi Shimon will prove his point from the Tuchum law that we have just learned. Now, the sage's view, which Rabbi Shimon references and attempts to disprove, is not recorded in the Mishnah, but rather in the Braita on page 49a in Masechet Eruvin. Amar Rabbi Shimon said, Lema davar domeh, to what is this Tuchum law, that the outer people may share with the middle person, but not with each other similar? L'shalosh chatzerot hapituchot zu lazo uftuchot l'reshut harabim, to 3 courtyards that open one into the other and are also open into the public domain, meaning each courtyard has an independent outlet to the street. Again, whoever can see the diagram to illustrate the Mishnah's point. Ervu shteen ima emtzait, if the 2 outer courtyards were joined in an eruv with the middle courtyard, but not with each other, meaning the residents of the middle courtyard joined in one eruv with the residents of one of the outer courtyards, and in another eruv with the residents of the other outer courtyard. However, the 2 outer courtyards were not merged. Hi muteret imaim ve mutarot imah. It is permitted with them, meaning the residents of the middle courtyard may carry into either of the outer courtyards, and they are permitted with it, meaning the residents of either outer courtyard may carry into the middle courtyard. But the 2 outer courtyards are prohibited with one another, meaning the residents of one outer courtyard may not carry into the other outer courtyard, since the middle courtyard is merged with each other, with each of the outer courtyards. The residents of the middle courtyard may carry into either one of the outer courtyards and vice versa, but the residents of one outer courtyard may not carry into the other outer courtyard, since they are not joined in an eruv. Now the commentaries fill in that although the residents of one outer courtyard may not carry into the other outer courtyard, Rabbi Shimon allows the residents of the outer courtyards to carry into the middle courtyard and vice versa, and he's not concerned that this will lead one to carry an item from one outer courtyard to the other. Now he proves this from the similar case of 3 people with 4 amot each, where we allowed the 2 outer people to bring their food into the area they each share with the middle person and vice versa, and we are not concerned that this will lead one to move food from one outer area to the other outer area. However, the sages dispute this comparison, the commentaries write, and forbid the residents of the 2 outer courtyards to carry into the middle courtyard and vice versa, out of concern that this will lead one to carry an item from one outer courtyard to the other. Now the sages hold that there is no comparison between the cases of 3 courtyards and 3 people camped on the road. In the case of Tchum, there are only 3 people involved, and if one of them would start transferring food from one outer area to the other, one of the others will see and stop him. But in the case of the courtyards, there are many residents in the various courtyards, and one does not necessarily know in which courtyard each person lives. Therefore, when one sees someone about to carry from the middle courtyard into one of the outer areas, he may assume that the person carrying is from the middle courtyard and see no reason to stop him. Now, in order to prevent carrying between the 2 outer courtyards, the rabbis therefore forbade carrying even between the outer courtyards and the middle one, as the Rav explains and how the Gemara explains on page 48a in Masechet Eruvin. And the Rav writes, "V'alacha ki Rabbi Shimon." The halacha follows the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. B'shalosh chatzirot, in the case of 3 courtyards, sheshtei chitzonot bilvad asurot zo im zo, that only the 2 outer courtyards may not carry into each other, but the residents of either outer courtyards may carry into the middle courtyard, and we're not concerned they're going to go straight from one outer courtyard to the other. The halacha follows Rabbi Shimon, and that is in the Rabotai of Mishnah Vav. Mishnah Zayin now continues, the usual way to establish a Shabbat residence in a place other than where a person lives is to put food there before Shabbat as an Eruv Techumin. This Mishnah discusses another method to establish a Shabbat residence. Mi sheba baderech v'chashchalo, one who was traveling on Friday and it began to grow dark too quickly for him to reach home before Shabbat. Now the commentaries say he was more than 2,000 amot from his house. If he would establish his residence at his present location, he would not be able to reach his house on Shabbat. Vayamakir ilano gader, but he knew of a landmark such as a tree or wall that lay ahead of him within 2,000 amot of his present location and within 2,000 amot of his house. Va'amar shevitati tachtav, and he said, my residence for Shabbat should be under that tree or wall. Now, the commentator is right, this would enable him to walk from where he is to that point, and from there to his house, since the tree or wall is within 2,000 amot, of his house. Now, lo amar klum, the Mishnah says he has said nothing, meaning his declaration has no effect. Since the area under the tree or next to the wall is larger than the 4 amot the person receives as his residence when he camps out in the open, this declaration is not specific enough to establish a residence in that place. Now the commentary is right. A residence out in the open is just 4 amot, and the techum of 2,000 amot is measured from the end of that place. Now the Mishnah is speaking of a tree or wall that covers an area 8 amot or more. Since this area contains more than one 4 amah space, it's not clear which 4 amah space the traveler designated as his residence, and therefore cannot take effect. That's what the Rav explains the Mishnah. However, the commentaries do add, if the tree covers an area that contains only one 4 amah space, or if it covers an area 7 amot or smaller, so that no matter how he places 4 amot designation, the middle amah of it is surely part of it, his residence is established there. Now, since the residence he intended to establish under the tree, in our Mishnah's case, did not take effect, and he had no intention to establish residence at his present location, he has no residence at all. He therefore does not even have 2,000 amot from his present location. Rather, he must remain in his 4 amah space for all of Shabbat. Shvitati bi'ikaro. However, if he said, my residence should be at the tree's trunk, specifying an exact area, his declaration takes effect and establishes his residence at the tree's trunk. Accordingly, he may go from the place he is standing until its trunk up to 2,000 amot, and then from its trunk until his house up to 2,000 amot, because the commentary is right. Since the trunk is now his residence, he can go 2,000 amot from there in every direction, and this allows him to reach the tree trunk from his present location and then go another 2,000 amot to his house. Right? He may go from the place he's standing until his trunk up to 2,000 amot, and then from his trunk until his house up to 2,000 amot. It emerges that he may go after dark up to 4,000 amot. And the commentary is right, the sages were lenient and allowed a traveler to establish a Shabbat residence by simply specifying a location and declaring it to be his residence. Now, the place he designates must be close enough that the traveler is able to reach it before dark, although he is tired and wants to rest where he is. Since he's too tired to travel further, the sages allowed him to establish a residence in a place that he is theoretically able to reach before dark. And that is an Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.